Hello, everyone. Welcome to Light Haven, the podcast for all things spiritual, mystical, and energetic. My name is Ruth, mystery student towards the awakening of consciousness.
And my name is Bianca, light worker and astrology enthusiast.
Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the conversation, Emotional First Aid, Navigating Life's Biggest Storms, Part 2. And Arlen is not going to be joining us, but I think it's going to be a really great conversation
Yeah, it's going to be
nonetheless.
good. Going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know that emotional stabilization is just, it's vital for people to have a happy and successful life. And those who've been seeking healing for a long time now, they are probably ready to have a change. And we can pick up a lot of gimmicks and tricks along the way that can help us regulate, and that's great. But if we want lasting fundamental change and we want to discover balance, and then from that balance go to a place of thriving, that's what this conversation is all about. And if you have been listening to our podcasts for some time, you may have heard a whole variety of different ways that you can address your emotional state, your psychological state, your spiritual and energetic state. And we are so pleased to be able to gather and bring all of these experiences and different pockets of wisdom from around the world to people. And as I was preparing for this episode, I had this impression that came to me around a very important concept to do with these types of studies. Because if you are fascinated by the mind and the body and the soul and achieving balance, and then from there moving towards a place of thriving, if you're like me, you'll do a lot of studies and dive into so many different teachings. And this point that I want to make is that at some stage, beyond just the listening and learning, you have to start taking action. So, this is one example. I had a friend who was having really big anxiety attacks, and they were finding themselves in a whole bunch of different situations. They were in a new workplace and they were often getting frozen to the point where they couldn't speak in meetings. They would go to client meetings, they would be in team meetings. And because they had completely changed companies and roles and industries, they were just finding themselves quite overwhelmed with all of the changes. And so when I noticed this, I asked them, "Hey, I'm actually really passionate about things to do with your inner state and the inner work." And so I started very light with some basic peripheral types of practices. And I said, "Have you ever heard of box breathing?" And they went, "Oh, yeah, yeah, no, I know about that." And I said, "Oh, okay. Have you dabbled in meditation before?" And they said, "Yes, yes, I know about that and all of its benefits." And I said, "Right. And you're also having like some, really big, you're freezing in a lot of these circumstances that would be normal for other people. So there could be the need to have some physiological regulation as well. Have you heard of emotional freedom technique?" And they just came back to me again. "Yes, yes, I've heard of all of that. I know how to do it." And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting. So what did you think of these techniques? Did you try them, or are you willing to try them?" And their answer was no, no. And I said, "Oh, well, would you consider trying them?" And they said, "No, not right now. I don't think so. I just but I'm so stressed." And so they there was a medicine there for them, and they even knew about it and they knew the techniques. And so that was on one hand. And then the other hand, they had all of these problems and these emotional states that were causing anxiety and worrying, but they were refusing to apply any of the medicine. And so my point is that at some stage you do need to start going, okay, which of these types of modalities and advice and direction and practices would I be interested to experiment with? You don't have to believe that it's even going to work for you, but just looking at them and saying, I'm going to give this a go because what have I got to lose? If you're going to tell people about how difficult it is for you, then maybe you could also be prepared to try something and give it a go, rather than being stuck in that space where you continually reaffirm how difficult it is, but never take that next step to address it. And it reminds me of this other friend I have where we're in this little group on Instagram, and sometimes we share all kinds of random things. It's not all the time, but just randomly people will share stuff. And this one friend, she is often sharing either recipes or workouts on Instagram. And when they come through, it's like a whole bunch of spam, just tons of stuff coming through. and we don't even always look at it. It's just there. And sometimes we say, oh, do you know how to click the save button if you're trying to save it for yourself? And then there's the comment, well, I'm saving it for all of us. You never know who wants these videos or workouts. And so it will be like a little hit workout, a 5-minute routine or a recipe. And there were tons of vegan recipes from when I was a vegan as well, which I still love vegan food. I think it's great. And so we had all these recipes and workouts and things saved there, but no one would ever try any of them. Um, no one would experiment with cooking anything or sharing it or any of the workouts. But the sharing part just kept continuing. And it's funny when you highlight, like, you do know that you're sharing and sharing these, but no one is using them. Are you sure you want to keep sharing them? Yes, I do. I might use them at some stage, but I don't know when. And so this is a common trap that a lot of us can fall into, where we collect a lot of advice and techniques. But on the other hand, there's something inside of us that is holding us back. And it's often inertia. Sometimes it's fear of change, because there's a part of us that identifies with a difficult emotional state. So, for example, if you learned that going into nature was going to help you regulate your emotional state and help you to de-stress, and there's a lot of research about that, so you know about that, and then you go and tell everyone, oh, I'm so stressed, I'm so this and that, but you never go out into nature. Well, then what is the next thing that you could do given all of this information? Going into nature is going to help you. You know that you need help. It's something that you could do, you'd be interested to do. So then the next natural step is to plan it into your schedule instead of making excuses. And I know it's hard. Like we all have this habit and these difficulties and challenges when it comes to making new habits. If you just pick up the book Atomic Habits, that's all about our psychology and how we love our routine, and it's really hard for us to break out and try something new. But again, it's just that first step of, okay, maybe I can't go for a 5-hour walk every Sunday, but maybe I can do a 5-10 minute walk at the little park behind my house, and I can start with that. So starting with something small, finding a small way to apply some of the steps that are going to get you closer to being more balanced and emotionally free. I thought that was a really good, important point. And it's the same for exercise. So a lot of people, they know, if I were to exercise, that would be greatly helpful for my emotional regulation. It would be helpful for my nervous system. And
Totally.
yeah, all I need to do is have a daily routine, but I can't. And then you have the classic excuses like, I don't have enough time in the day. I've got responsibilities. I'm a parent. And I don't know what exercise I should do. I can't join a gym. I can't afford it. And when you unpack all these things, they do turn out to be excuses because the
Mm,
person is always looking at the things they can't do rather than
right.
the things they can. So maybe you can't go to a gym, or you can't pass your kids on to someone to look after for an hour, but you could do a 5 minute stretches and hit workout, or like a short workout from Instagram or YouTube online for 5 to 6 minutes. You can actually get in a very good workout in that time, if you are picking the right one. And if you say, well, I don't know what is the right one, then for you, the first step would be to do a bit of research and look to find one that's going to work for you, because what's a good workout for one person is not the same for another person. But it's
Mhm.
just taking those little steps. Have you had many experiences with that? Because I think it's a universal thing for all of us.
Yeah, like I the thought that was coming up for me as I was listening to these experiences, examples, stories, was that some people, um, sometimes it's not the right timing for them. They need to continue in the suffering, or they need to continue in this way of being for some time until something drops, until like the shoe drops and they're like, all right, I need to seek help or I need to do something different. So I think sometimes, like, and I've been in this state as well where it's like I'm so stressed, at work, or like I don't know what to do. Um I'm feeling overwhelmed. Um I know I need to maybe regulate my breathing. I know that I need to go outside and go for a walk or go for a run, or you know, but just like the knowing doesn't actually mean anything until you start doing it, or until there's something inside you that compels you to action. Like, so that I couldn't help but think that in those times, where I've had periods of, dark times, that have lasted a long time, and I haven't. Sometimes I'm in it and I'm thinking, is there even a light at the end of this tunnel? um, and so it's really difficult to. It's like we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make it drink. So it's like you could have all the tools in the world and have all the facts presented in front of you as to why you should do something, but if that person is not seeing that it's going, like, if they're not compelled to think that it is going to make a difference, because they're going to use an excuse to be like, well, I was exercising and it didn't make me feel any better, and well, yeah, maybe we look at to take a deeper look at it, maybe they were exercising but just eating really crap. Like, so it was like, well, um so yeah, I think we can talk all we want about all the things, that we could do to make our lives easier and more, healthier and more, I don't know. Yeah, we could make it the most positive as we could, but yeah, it's like it's up to the person as to whether they're gonna take action and do the breathing, do the exercises, do the meditation, take action. So, but the good thing about us talking about it and raising awareness, in my opinion, is that when we're talking about these things, it gets people thinking. And out of, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of people, maybe one or two of them at that time, it's going to resonate, and they're going to be compelled to want to sign up to the gym, or they're going to want to maybe start a 20-minute daily meditation practice. Um, and yeah, like I said, timing. It's all timing. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just not your time, and you have to keep waiting in the mud. You have to keep like tracking through until you find, your way out, with the tools that you've acquired in your life experience. So yeah.
And I think support plays a big part in that as well.
Yeah, totally.
Typically, when people go into a dark place, there's a subconscious part of them that is very sure of where they're
Hmm.
going.
Hmm.
And this part seeks to isolate them.
Yeah.
So they will begin this journey by uh, not texting their friends and not going out and seeing people because they're preparing to hunker down and go into this dark night of the soul. And it starts with isolation. You can't see those happy faces of your friends. You're going to be sad and depressed for a while, so you stop talking to people, and then you might stop doing the things that normally help you to feel better. So you stop eating on a good schedule, and you stop exercising. You stop, if you were meditating, you might stop meditating. So gradually you go down this slippery slope until you reach the point where, nope, now I'm really in the thick of it. So if we know that that's how this works, then if you're someone that is conscious enough to see it happening, and maybe you don't want to go down that dark path, then you might, at the stage when you start to notice the signs and you notice, okay, every time I isolate, I'm going into this den of sadness. So when I notice that I'm starting to become less consistent in all of my routines, then now is the point where I'm going to start reaching out for help and being more active with the steps
Hmm.
that I
Hmm.
take. So,
And
for example, I know someone who's struggled with trauma for their whole life,
mm,
and they did many methods like shaking their hands to regulate big surges of energy, yogic breath work, like the kind where you hold your breath to breathe, like not Wim Hof, where you hyperventilate, but the kind that really calms your nervous system down. So you breathe according to certain counts and ratios. And when you
mhm,
have a longer out breath, then that starts to really calm you down. So doing things like that and seeing countless professionals, when we're not professional experts, and we'd always
mhm,
say go see professional. Well, this person had
mhm,
seen all the professionals, all the therapists, and they've done cognitive behavioral therapy
mm,
and all the different other kinds of therapies. And they seem to have gotten a little bit better, but then past that, they were kind of yo-yoing just on that point.
mhm,
And so you could say in some way, all of the prescribed kind of general publicly available methods didn't work for them. And I'm not saying that now you and I are going to come along and give them the answers after the professionals failed. Well, boy, have we
ah,
got a treat for you. We've got the
yeah.
magic bullet. No, I'm not saying I'm not saying that. Like their issues would have been very complex. And if you're spiritual, you could say, if you believe these ideas that there could have been things in past lives that are contributing
Mhm,
to the struggles that they're having now. So it's a very, very
mhm,
long road that they've come down. But there were two big keys that I wanted to highlight around all of this type of self work and methods that people try and going within. And these two keys are focus and identity. So focus it's a principle that's been around in the spiritual and energetic communities for a long time. And it's the idea that whatever you focus on is going to grow. You're going to
mhm,
get more of it. So if you are going to your therapist and you're going back to this scene where you were injured or hurt, wounded in very traumatic ways, and you're replaying it again and again and again, there is a there is a therapeutic aspect to going back to that scene. But the idea is to dissolve the issues that arose from it and then to move on. But where you have a person that is really identified with their trauma and identified with their pain, then they will continue to repeat those stories again and again to anyone who will listen. Let's say their
Mhm.
close circle or their mom or their dad or their lover, their
Yeah.
partner. And by doing that, then the pain never ends. And of course, we cannot say to them, well, you shouldn't talk about it or you need to be quiet. Like, by no means are we trying to silence anyone or even tell them what to do or what is right for them. It is just the principle that has been tried and tested that whatever you focus on, you will get more of. If you put your mind to your studies and you're studying a certain topic, like you, Bianca, you're studying astrology. The
Mhm.
more you study astrology, the more you delve into this world, and your whole world is astrology, and you have
Mhm.
friends in astrology. And when you speak, the things that you share are the astrological lens. So you're completely immersed just by focusing, you're getting more and more of the same.
Mhm.
And if someone is focused on their difficulties, then they're going to seem worse. And that's, it sounds simplistic, and I'm acknowledging that there's a lot more to it than that, but it is one thing to bear in mind, that the more you replay it and identify with it and tell people about it, the more you're going to be stuck in that state, because
Mhm.
the physiological state arises due to the stories in our mind and the scenes we replay in our mind, which is why meditation is to clear your mind so you're not actively imposing any state on your body. But the people that are always bringing up these scenes, then they're going to be stuck in that hypervigilant state, the fight or flight, because essentially their mind doesn't know the difference and they're just there again and again and again, which is very painful. And the question of how to stop is a whole other conversation. But that's the first point, is to recognize that whenever you replay those scenes and keep telling people about it and going back and reliving it, you are suffering again.
Mhm.
So that's the first point, is the focus.
Mhm.
And the second point is identity. Because if you have been around or seen people that are very locked into these past sudden traumatic events, often in childhood, and it doesn't even have to be traumatic. It can be that your parent just, shooed you out of the kitchen, but it was how you perceived it and how you experienced it that turned into a whole thing
Mhm.
of needing to shout to be heard, or feeling triggered when someone appears to be dismissing you, or whatever it is. So if you identify as someone who has undergone trauma, and I think we talked about this previously when we were talking about child wounds. It was the conversation about family love and me needing to be heard, and then going back to my childhood, because I came from a big family and we always had to shout to be heard. So if someone goes and makes a decision and says, you're going to do this, or this is what we're going to do, and I bought you this, and that means tomorrow you're going here, then for me, that was a trigger. And what I learned as I reflected on that was, okay, I knew that it could trigger me, but by continuously running that program and that story through my head of, this is a child wound, every time someone makes a plan, I'm going to be triggered, then I'm reinforcing that identity. And the amazing thing about identity is that it's fluid. We, by 2024, we should know how fluid identity is. We can choose it from one moment to the next. And then when we've made that choice, then it's to move into that new identity and see how that feels. It's like putting on a new jacket. You can take it off, you can put on another one. And so people that have identified as someone who has been wounded for so long and go around telling everyone about it, then they lock in that identity and they say, oh, I have, and they put the label, I have PTSD, I have da 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 disorder. And they become so used to it that they feel safe inside of this identity. So even when they then find the therapies and methods that can help them move past the trauma, they now become afraid to let go of that identity. because it feels safe and familiar. So that's another idea to think about, that if you want to change, it's going to be scary and it's going to involve surrender and letting go of who you used to be. But there could be an amazing life and an amazing person and future waiting for you on the other side. So, as someone who continually is changing and growing, and I'm sure you are too, Bianca,
Mhm, of
you
course.
I
Yeah.
can say hand on heart that it's worth it, even if it's scary. And it feels like a part of you is dying when you
Mhm,
let go of an identity, like the need to be right, or my need for fairness, or any of these things that we cling to that end up causing us more inner turmoil.
mhm.
It's worth it.
Yeah. No, I really no, thank you for sharing that. There's some things that really resonated with the whole like, you know, focus what you focus on is what's going to grow, and also what you identify with, um, different aspects of yourself. It's almost like we become victim to our own idea of who we are. You know, those self-limiting beliefs. um, I like to call them that because they do limit you to the growth that you could have. And I think in life, when you look back, when you get to the age that I am, you look back and you think, wow, I'm really not the person I was 10 years ago. Like, um, in my marriage, I grew a lot. You know, there were a lot of things that I was bringing with me from my upbringing, from my childhood, habits that that I didn't even know I had. But when you merge your life with someone else, then you realize that those habits aren't helpful. And so you have to allow the death of that habit. And it doesn't take a day. It can take many tries and lots of continuous effort to break free. And I'll give you a real basic example is so when I was growing up, the house was always messy, and I was used to a messy house. And I remember when I used to go visit family friends and I'd be in their houses and I'd be looking around, and it would be perfect, like not a single thing out of place. And it'd make me uncomfortable for some reason. Like I almost felt like I didn't want to touch anything. I didn't want to move anything out of place because everything was too perfect, and it made me feel very uncomfortable inside. Um, and so when I grew older and entered into like a marriage, which I was religious for my whole entire life, and there was like you're not going to live with someone unless you're married. So it's like a man and a woman get married and then they live together. So I hadn't really like shared my life with anyone that intimately. So when we did merge our lives together and did like get married and then moved in together and um tried to make this harmonious, happy life together, we were finding the daily things like cleanliness, like clothes on the floor, dishes in the sink, those things that you have to do every day. You have to keep up with, the household chores. And my level of comfort in sitting in mess was way more flexible than what my husband at the time was comfortable with. And so I had to really we had some big arguments over this, and I could see how it was affecting him. And so I was like, all right, I gotta make this house clean, keep
Mm,
doing those chores every day, and like because I know that this is what makes like my partner happy, my husband happy. I don't care either way, but it's what you do when you're in a relationship. You make an effort because when you
yeah.
see someone you love happy, that makes you happy too. So, and it's not hard. I mean, yeah, it was hard, but like, I mean, like, cleaning your house, come on, um, it's not the funnest thing in the world, but
No,
so
it's not.
that was that's that. And then anyway, like I've come a long way in terms of now, like it's a habit that I now have with me, even though that relationship is no longer, it's like still like clean home.
Nice,
So
nice.
so I could identify myself with, oh, it's just mess. It's just, it can be, I could do the dishes tomorrow. It's no big deal. Or I can fold the pile of laundry tomorrow. It's not going anywhere. But
Hmm.
like you just do your thing and yeah, and then now I'm like, oh, I'm not such a messy person after all.
Right. And you
So
would have had to let go of the
yeah,
person you used to be and be
yeah,
okay with that in order to step into
exactly.
the new way of having those habits of cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't even like I, it's not like I can say now I'm a clean person. It's just
Hmm.
like recognizing the change from like a before and after picture. Like me at 20 years old being okay with mess, and then me now nearly 40 years old being like, what, I probably should just do the dishes now, not wait for later. Like, um and it makes it so much easier when I have guests over, because then I don't have to like try and frantically madly rush around and clean up the house, because it's normally pretty okay. So
Yeah. Well, how
yeah.
good is it that now you've had the change because you're finding there's a practical benefit for you
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. But that's the thing. And it's just like, it's okay, death of the old self, right? But sometimes you don't recognize it as a death. You just think of it as, oh, that's what I used to do. Now I'm doing something different, like this
Yeah.
is, and you don't identify with it anymore. There's some things that we hold closely to ourselves that are harder to let go of, but yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's right. And all change comes from a part of you dying and
Mm,
then something new being reborn. And the
exactly.
sooner you can be comfortable with that concept, the sooner you can discover how
Hmm.
good it can get and how amazing you can be when you unlock all of your hidden potential that's been obscured by those shadows of doubts and withholding. The keeping your house clean is one small example, but there's so much more to do with your state and your joy and abundance and all these things.
Yes, good point. Good
Yeah, but
point.
it starts with that, right? It starts with the little things. And once you learn that, okay, a part of me can die and a new part can be reborn, if
Mhm.
it can happen with cleaning the home,
The same
then what
process.
else? Yeah,
Same
exactly.
process. Yeah.
Then I can
So,
apply it to my anger and so on.
mhm.
But we also have the astrological forecast.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, thank you for bringing this up, because I was thinking about this and I was like, what can I talk about, astrological forecast? And I have so many things that I want to talk about. I could talk about astrology all day, but I do, and part of me was thinking about sharing sharing what I know on this podcast. And I thought, like, uh a part of me was kind of feeling that, oh, like maybe I need to make it relatable in terms of, there's a lot of technicality behind and a lot of jargon, a lot of things, a lot of things that don't make sense to a lot of people, but in my mind, because I'm studying
Yeah.
it, it all makes sense to me, and I can kind of sound like a crazy person when I start talking. It's like,
not
whoa,
not a
like you lost
crazy
me.
person, but then maybe those of us who aren't studying it feel like,
Mm. Mm.
oh, I don't know anything. I don't know
Yeah,
what she's talking
exactly.
about.
Yeah, yeah. And then I thought, how is this even related to what we talk about on this podcast? But when I think about it, this platform, we talk about all things to do with spirituality, mysticism, as we say, and esoteric things of that kind of nature. And I was like, well, because I'm studying ancient Hellenistic astrology, which is considered to be back in those days, 300 BC, um, astrology was a form of divination back in those days, and it's gone through many phases and different eras throughout its life cycle. So it went from ancient astrology, Hellenistic astrology, through to we went to Arabic and medieval and Renaissance and now modern astrology. So it's gone through these different phases. Um, but back in the ancient astrology that I'm learning, that era was the time where it was a form of divination, and we it's just one of many tools that we have at our disposal. There's tarot reading, we've got rune casting, the I Ching, got numerology. We have all of we have all of this capability within us to receive divine guidance. And I think even religion on a foundational level has this belief that we're able to receive revelation and guidance from a greater being, aka God. And so, for this reason, I put this in the category of like spiritual, even, yeah, mysticism. Because,
100%. I
yeah,
agree with that.
yeah,
And I would say that on one day, one day they're going to discover that all of spirituality is scientific anyway, and
hmm
it's one big system that the way modern science has gone, there is not enough public studies to demonstrate how these things work.
hmm
But the ancients have always known and tapped into this higher knowing. And
hmm
it's just a matter of science catching up
hmm
with these ancient disciplines. And the classic example is where you have a study in this day and age that finally proves that going into the forest is good for you. And it's like,
hmm
yeah, but we already knew that. So
hmm
thank you for confirming what we already knew. And I
hmm
think it will be like that with a lot of these things to do with meditation and astrology, where
hmm
there's always been these principles and this ancient wisdom. And it's called spirituality simply because the science is not there yet. It's
hmm
not
hmm
caught up, or if
hmm
there is science around it, it's not publicly propagated.
hmm
It's kind of in these obscure places.
hmm
But one day they'll be in alignment, and then we'll be able to see that science and spirituality, we're always talking about the same thing. It's all energy and physics and the laws of nature and the
hmm
universe.
hmm Exactly. And and just on a real broad, just taking a step back type of just looking from outside in, um, what the direct benefit is like for me is that just having a tool that I can turn to that can help me understand myself a little bit better and have a little bit of have a greater self-awareness of what's going on with me in this present moment. And I wouldn't say that the planets are causal, like, because we're talking about astrology here, and that being my chosen tool of divination. But so when I think of using astrology to help guide me, it's not and help understand who I am. It's not that I'm saying that because the moon is in this aspect and the sun is in this aspect, it's now going to cause me to feel angry or sad or whatever. It's not causal in the way that they move, but it's more of like a reflection of uh, I guess it's more of like a, I don't want to say omen, but like a, oh, so this is what's happening in the sky, reflecting of my inner self. And it's a reflection, like a living, breathing, where what's happening inside is happening without, what's happening outside is happening inside. So it's more like that. But I wouldn't say that because the moon goes into this sign, now I'm going to be like angry for the next 2 days. Like it's not the moon going into Scorpio that's gonna make me moody. It's just, yeah, it's more of a reflective tool, if that makes sense. Not a causal tool. So
That
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a similar methodology that I apply to, say, meditation and receiving a
Mhm,
message or a vision, whether
mhm.
it's in the form of a dream or when you're meditating. Sometimes you can have an image flash before your mind and you're communicating with the subconscious. So I'll
Yep.
give you a small example.
Yeah.
Um, Last night, when I was meditating, I saw an image of a jug, and it just
Okay.
appeared on the screen of my mind. It was like a pottery jug, and it was pouring water. And then there was another jug, and it was pouring water into that jug and into that jug, and there was three of them. And so, because when you're deep in meditation, you're contacting the subconscious, so you can ask it what it means. And the message that I got, the translation of the images that I was receiving was, you sometimes expend too much energy. So that water pouring out is having too many different projects. And I said, oh, I recently was talking to a friend and I agreed to help them write something. We might publish a children's storybook. And I was talking to the subconscious and I was like, is that okay? And it said, that's the last thing you sign up for. Don't sign up for any more things because you're going to spread yourself too thin. And
Yeah.
you keep doing this. And I said, okay, I, Captain, I get the message.
Aye, aye,
So the
Captain.
conscious, yeah, the conscious and the subconscious can talk to each other, and then you're contacting your deeper self to understand. If you didn't contact that deeper part of yourself, then if you were just up here on the conscious surface, you'd be going, why am I irritated and tired and just feeling really annoyed with everything? But underneath the surface, there's a reason. So that is not to say that because I saw the images of those pouring drugs, that definitely that was a message from the divine. It could have been a complete projection of my mind. Could have been. There's no way to prove it. Was it my subconscious talking to me? Was it just me being a bit nutters? But the point is, by going through that exercise, I did truly understand something about myself that I inherently knew. So it was that exercise that allowed me to understand that the deeper part of me did not want to commit to any more projects. That was, you have two projects and that is enough. Don't do any more. If I didn't do that exercise, I may or may not have realized that, because I love going, yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
I
Yep.
want to do that. My FOMO, yeah, sign me up. When are we starting? What's the
Yep.
plan? So I think it's the same thing as what you're saying, is that it's a tool you use and you uncover more about yourself. And because it's a tool for accessing your internal world, you don't answer to anyone. It's completely irrelevant. The proving things is does not relate to this kind of practice of, what am I really thinking and feeling? If the tool works for you, that is all that matters.
Mhm.
And someone else's opinion or studies, they're not necessarily practical in this regard. No one can say, oh, this is a better modality for you, because it's you. You're the one who decides what
Mhm.
works for you.
Mhm. Exactly. Thank you for sharing. No. Um, so with the going back to the astrology forecast, I'll keep this very brief. So, um, now what we have going on in the sky right now is activation of all of the water signs. So that is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And what's activating these signs is the planets that are currently in these signs. So we've got Mars, the planet of war, aggression, action, passion. share life force, that's in Cancer up until the 4th of November. So we're recording this early October. We've still got a month of this to go, of this Mars in Cancer. Then we have Venus. In the Venus is a planet of love, harmony, relationships. Can even have something to do with money, in the sign of Scorpio until the 18th of October. So we have about another week and a half of Venus in Scorpio. And then we have Saturn, which is the planet of it's like the taskmaster, the teacher, the the Lord of Time. Saturn is gives me like Big Daddy energy. I don't know how else to describe
You
Saturn,
mean the
but
authoritarian?
yeah, yes, but um, yeah, we got to be careful with that word because we've got Jupiter, who also is symbolizes structures, government institutions, eh, uh, eh, universities, higher learning, um, societal structure that can also be interpreted as authority because it's like the judicial system, that the governments, the courts, the police, all of that. So yeah, so if you say authority, and if you have that in mind, that could be a very Jupiterian type of authority. So yeah, we just got to be careful using authority for Saturn because yeah, it can be Saturn, but it could also be Jupiter. But Saturn's in
I see.
Pisces. Saturn's in Pisces until May 2025. So we've got these three planets in the three water signs, and they are creating what we call a water trine. But at the moment, they are coming into an engagement of a trine. Trine is a harmonious aspect. It is of the nature of Jupiter, who seeks to bring people together and wants cohesion. And I say harmony, but that's a real Venusian thing. But so we've got these planets coming into like a trine, which is like like a triangle. So we've got like Mars in Cancer, we've got Venus in Scorpio, we've got Pisces, Saturn and Pisces, and they're just making this. And if you think like the symbolic triangle shape, it can have a lot of has a lot of symbolism. And now, right now, when we're recording, it is in an engagement of an actual grand water trine, which is it's a good thing, but it, well, they're not going to be in this aspect, in this grand water trine aspect for very long. So by the time
How
this
long will it be?
like say the by the 8th of October, we might be getting into the
Oh,
no longer range. But ancient astrology, ancient astrologers, which is the astrology form of astrology that I'm learning, we they ancient astrologers believed that they believed in sign-based aspects. So just because um, Cancer, Mars in Cancer and Venus in Scorpio, just because their degrees are not exactly aligned, that doesn't mean anything. Once Mars has entered Cancer, once Venus has entered Scorpio, doesn't matter what degree, they are now in a harmonious, receptive aspect called a trine with each other. So they call it a sign-based aspect. So we're going to have these three water planets, these three water signs activated for as long as Mars, Venus, and Saturn are all in these water signs together. So Venus is the first one to leave on the 18th of October, leave Scorpio and enters into Sagittarius. So we've got another week and a half of having these water signs activated. And so what that means for us is there's a lot of focus on emotions and emotional regulation. emotional regulation is a biggie only, and I say that only because Venus is not the strongest in Scorpio, and Mars is not happy in Cancer. So we've got two unhappy planets, but they're still kind of like, it's almost like they are talking to each other from a distance, saying, man, it really sucks being here. I'm really moody, but it's kind of cool to have a friend at the other end of the phone line, to vent to, So, and when you're a moody person, like the whole house feels it sometimes. So it's almost like the kind of like causing some ripples, are causing a bit of, upheaval with their moodiness, with their like, oh, I don't want to be here, but I'm here. And so, I'm gonna lash out or do something. But I don't want to paint this as like as a tricky time. I don't want to paint this as like a unhappy type of like time. I mean, there's just because the
What kind of a
planet's not
time is it?
like, so it's a time of reflecting on um on just going inward and being like, what is it that I'm not happy about? Like trying to really dig beneath the surface of what's going on. Because we've talked briefly about this in previous episodes with an emotion like anger is a call for action because of something, like it's not that you're angry, but there's something else behind that emotion that you need to figure out, right?
Yes.
So um, now there's this really interesting concept. I just want to share this with you. That my astrology teacher Adam shared on his YouTube podcast. It's called Nightlight Astrology. If you're interested, go check it out. I highly recommend his content. Like I'm always learning something new whenever I listen to his episodes. So go check him out. Nightlight Astrology on YouTube, on every
Is he
major
paying you for
platform.
this?
No, he's not paying me for
Jokes,
this.
jokes.
But if you're listening, Adam, like hopefully I don't.
Maybe he should.
No, no. He's a busy man. But um he recently described these water signs, Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces. And okay, so personally, I know he has some big planets in water signs, such as I have a lot of my major planets in water signs. So I completely resonated with this idea where he said that these signs, Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces, have um, this heightened environmental and instinctual awareness. And he
Mm.
uses this example of when people walk into a room and you suddenly get this bad vibe, this bad feeling. Yeah, like so he used that example, but he said that it's not the feeling that's the water. Because when we think of water signs, we think of, oh, emotions, Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yes. Okay, that's not wrong. But he said
Mhm.
it's not the feeling, the emotion that you're feeling that is the like the water sign. It's the this ability to be so receptive and have this like be so receptive to the environmental shift that's happened, energetic shift that's happened now that someone's entered the room and brought their negativity with them or something. So there's this with the water signs, because water, if you think of it, it's like a conduit. It just like it's always moving. You don't want stagnant water because then it starts to to become, polluted and toxic. It always has to move and flow. And so it carries with it energy. Like it's like you imagine the way water flows, it's kind of like how energy flows. And when you are entering a room with someone else, you're having that energetic exchange. Our auras meet because our auras can extend far, like out beyond like here, right? And so there's just this instinctual awareness of your environment, just real heightened. And so because we have these planets in these water signs, and these water signs are activating, we all have these signs in our birth charts. We all
Yeah.
have this within us. So, Ruth, you have Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio in your birth chart. I do too. So we all have these things within us. We all have this innate ability to sense when something doesn't feel right. We have this instinctual, some is easier to tap into than others. And some people have just switched it completely off due to traumatic events or due to conditioning of growing up
Or maybe they
culturally.
were too sensitive and they had to turn it
Yeah,
off
and they
because
had,
they couldn't
yeah,
stand
or
it.
maybe they grew up in a household that didn't encourage the flow of sharing and receiving, um, of their feelings and of their how they're feeling. Um, so getting back to this is all heightened. So we're all having
Right.
this increased self-awareness, increased heightened instinctual um, awareness of what's going on in our environment, which means with heightened awareness comes things come up to the surface that you're like, you now realize that you've been living with, and you can see the patterns, and you're like, you know what, like, oh, I can see now that the thing that I'm doing or the thing that's happening in this household is making me, is bringing down my mood and
Yeah.
not making me want to go exercise, or making me stressed out that I just go sleep, because that's the way that I deal with, or emotional eating. You just eat when you're stressed or whatever. And so with this heightened awareness, basically is just understanding now, like, what it is that you need to change, or now being aware of how you have not been helping yourself in these situations, that are leading you to reactivity, that are leading you to, um, like, no longer blaming others, but be like, wow, yeah, I've willingly been engaging with this person who just keeps bringing down my mood. And and what you do with that heightened awareness and that realization is up to you. But hopefully, and just get to the end here, the lesson is hopefully we come out of this phase with greater emotional skills, like better emotional maturity, more emotional sensitivity or vulnerability. And just like my teacher Adam suggests, this could be a good time to process and release emotional trauma in constructive ways, because Saturn is involved. In Saturn, like I said, is the taskmaster, is the Lord of Time, but he has a lot of significations, and we learn great lessons when Saturn is involved in anything that's going on in aspects in our birth chart. So that's all I have to share on the astrological weather for, I guess, the next 2 weeks, because in the following couple of weeks we've got new things happening, new things emerging, different vibe changing. So hopefully we come out of this phase with a greater awareness of our emotional durability, and hopefully a little bit more of a deeper understanding of our own emotional state and awareness. So, yeah.
That was great. There was so much to reflect on, especially
Yeah.
on the being aware of how you're feeling and how other
Hmm.
people's energy is sitting and the vibe that they're putting out. And it's
Hmm.
so interesting you say that because that's something that I've been meditating on as well, where
Really
yeah, I've been
interesting.
meditating on it because it's been a theme for me where certain individuals, um, I have allowed their mood to become a weapon against myself
Hmm.
because if they have this disgusting mood, they might hide it, but I am so aware of it, they don't have to say anything. But then you can't go and accuse someone of putting out bad energy. Like, it's not a thing in society where you go, you're
Yeah.
being yucky, because they didn't say
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
They're
And the
just
worst is when they say, "Oh, I'm just a mirror." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like take some accountability for your own negative like
yeah,
energy that you're bringing in." So,
yeah, exactly. So it's something that I've been reflecting on, how when I know that if I say certain things about what is necessary from
mhm,
my end, and another person will react by going into a mood for
mhm,
weeks maybe,
mhm,
and um to me it becomes like a punishment, because I'm sensitive enough that I feel that energy, and it's just like, yuck,
mhm,
and it took so long to change things so that that vibe wasn't there. Now if you're doing something that's not okay, when I say something, your yucky mood is going to come back, and it's a punishment
mhm,
for me. So I've
mhm,
been reflecting on how I might restrict what I need to say, that I do need to say,
mhm.
because I know that there's going to be this backlash of a poor mood. And that actually flows really nicely into what I wanted to share about love energy that stabilizes the
Oh,
psyche.
cool. I love
Yeah,
that. I
so
love that.
it's a similar theme to what I've mentioned before when I talked about the metta meditation. Essentially, it is the same thing, but we're highlighting it from a very specific functional view. So the metta meditation that I've recommended to anyone who will listen and be keen to take it on board, it it connects to what came up in the last conversation about anchoring.
Mhm,
So anchoring is where we choose consciously the state that we want to be in, whether it is joy or confidence or abundance, whatever the state is. And we create the mental and internal dialogue and visions that evoke that state. And then we learn to lock it into a certain body position so we can have that state on tap. If
mhm,
I want to feel joy, I can just boom, I can call on it. And now the state of joy comes to me. So if we understand those principles and how that works, and anyone who hasn't dabbled in that yet since our last conversation, please give it a try. I know we didn't go too much into it, but you
mhm,
can you can do some research and find out more about anchoring and how to do that for yourself. But
mhm,
love energy is one of the most powerful energies. So you're
mhm,
calling on abundance or bliss or freedom or whatever these other energies are. But if we think of love energy as the king energy, that is a state that is very powerful. And if you learn how to evoke that energy like an energy worker and call upon it uh, at will, then this is something that can be very beneficial in difficult times. So the way that you learn to do that is you would do a meditation that brings up images or scenes that give you the feeling of love, whether you imagine a baby or being with your partner or your child, family, or being in nature, whatever gives you that warm fuzzy vibe. And then once you feel the vibe, then you can drop the imagery or the internal dialogue. Some people say, may all beings be happy, or may I be happy, may we all find peace. Whatever you want to say, that's cool. It doesn't really matter, because all we care about is bringing that energy up. And when you know that you have that love energy, then you just put your attention on that. And what we said about what you focus on grows. You focus on that love energy. And whether you spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day cultivating it until you feel that you've built this very nice love shield or love energy. Now, when you're not focusing on it, you may not feel it there. But the reason I bring it up is because if you have someone that's got a very poor mood, or like we're going into this period for the next 2 weeks when we might be more sensitive and people are going to have these big energies that might not feel comfortable, we can evoke that energy of love and hold it there. And that can just help stabilize our mood or how we're responding and reacting to what people are beaming at us. So you can take up this practice today, take it up tomorrow, have a daily love meditation, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, focus on love, learn to create that energy. And the next time someone starts looking daggers your way, just bring up that feeling of love. And that way, no matter what situation you come across, you get to decide what state you will be in. You're not at the mercy of others. And then you carry that peace with you. But I think this is it's a great gift that we want to give to people. And we've talked about so much.
Yeah, I really
It's
love that you shared that was it meta meditation?
meta. Yeah.
Yeah, you've done that meditation before, right? On us in one of our moon ceremonies. I'm trying to remember. There's been a few times where we always do a guided meditation, but I think meta is a bit different in that um you you did specifically do it, right?
Yes.
And was
Yeah.
it okay? I think I know the time that we did that, and it was the three of us. It was me, you, and Rachel.
Yes, that's
Oh
right.
yeah, yeah.
And that energy was so
It
powerful
was
just
so.
with just the three of us.
It
And
was.
even I never felt it that strongly before meditating on my own. Like, yes, I felt it, especially in times when I really needed it,
Mm-hmm.
that I instinctively went, oh, I need my love shield, make the love energy. And you just go, oh, okay, this energy is so comforting. If anyone
Mm-hmm.
doesn't believe in energy,
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell me, like, if you just walk over here, you'll you'll get electrocuted. You can't tell me this is not real.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I loved it when yeah, that's been my only experience. I think I've maybe done it a few times on my own, like just on an individual level, just doing my meditation. But that one specifically, I tried a couple times, but it was nowhere near as powerful as the one that we had with the three of us. Like, yeah, you could just touch it. Like it was just the energy was just so live.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
so like just electric, you know. It was amazing. It was really a fond memory that I have of that meditation style. Um but I just was thinking as well that oh no, I think because we're running out of time, I know it's
Mm-hmm.
been
We'll go
almost.
on and on.
Yeah, we
There's
we
no end.
will we will and then also yeah, I was like, oh, just was gonna talk about a dream that I had, but I'm like, oh no, that's gonna get into a whole nother thing. So
Well, yes,
yeah.
that we can, the conversation can continue because it's such a good vibe we've got going with all these practices that
Yeah,
people can use.
yeah. I might have to tell you afterwards. No.
Yes, oh no, we'll definitely. But
But yeah.
to all of our listeners, we'll just say this has been a great hour or so sharing and continuing on from last week's conversation. We hope that you've enjoyed the astrology update that can give us guidance and something to help us understand the coming weeks, especially if we notice that big emotions start to come up with those around us or our reactions regarding them. And also the very strong sentiment to just give things a go. There's so much advice out there. You don't have to take our advice, but you can have a look and just be willing to try things no matter what stage you're at, whether it's something big or baby steps. It doesn't matter because you only answer to yourself. And we want people to have hope that joy and abundance and peace is out there because the path to your best reality is in your hands to create when you become conscious.